Welcome to the Museum Roadshow. This week we're going up to Callaway. Callaway is celebrating their 100th anniversary this year. Westbury is also in on that, and so is Ogamon. The reason they're 100 years old is because that's about the time the railroad went through those small towns, the Sioux Line, going north up to Winnipeg. A big part of Callaway was the lumberyard. We also have some other guests here today that will be telling some things about Callaway that are rather interesting, but I'm going to talk a little bit about Tomlinson Lumber.
Callaway was incorporated around 1907, but the Sioux Line Railroad came through and started building in 1904. The United States Post Office named the little town called Baxter, but since there was already a Baxter in Minnesota, the post office wanted to rename it, and Spry was suggested, and because there were many families in Callaway that were named Spry. But that was rejected, and the Sioux Line Railroad was able to name one of their passenger agents as William Roger Callaway as the namesake for our town. So that's how Callaway got its name. The depot in Callaway was located at the corner of the Sioux Line Railroad tracks and Dakota Street. There is no longer a depot there, but it was, I think, pretty much the elevator that's there now in Callaway uses the land where it was. And then there's a few houses in the, across the road from where the depot was. But the main street of Callaway was Dakota Avenue, which is perpendicular to Highway 59 as it runs through Callaway today. Dakota is the only street that's paved in Callaway at this time, but because that was our main street. Back in 1906 or 07, most of the roads were dirt at that time, and Dakota had the only sidewalk that there was, because it was the main street. Ides had their first grocery store, and the way he got his start was he started selling his goods out of a piano box and living in a tent along Dakota Avenue.
Tomlinson Lumber was Callaway, as I remember it. Tomlinson Lumber was in business until about the mid-70s. Blair was having some serious health problems, and he sold out in 1976 to another company. And then the agreement was he was supposed to manage it for 3 years, which he did. And then in 1980, he was out of it. And after that, the lumberyard was sold again, and things kind of went downhill. But at the heyday, Tomlinson Lumber had about 30 crews out building buildings in a three-state area, the Dakotas and Minnesota. They had 10 trucks delivering material. And at one time, they'd have $1 million worth of inventory on hand to supply all these crews with the stuff. And when they started out, it was rather interesting. The first year, I think they said they were in business was about 1947, and they sold $60,000 worth of stuff, and Blair Tomlinson had a hard time believing that they could sell that much stuff that first year of business that they were in. The business was built a lot by farmers. Farmers were doing a lot of building in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, and they really liked to work with the farmers on their barns and sheds that they built, and then houses got to be kind of a sideline.
As I remember as a little girl, there was 2 restaurants in Callaway, and they were across the street from each other. One was a little ice cream parlor. We go in there, and then the telephone was on the other side of it. There was 2 places, and we could have ice cream cones and sodas. And then across the street was, well, as everybody knows, it was Baker's Cafe, but it had many owners before that. But that was my mother-in-law, and she had it for 28 years, and all the people from Callaway went there, like Johnson Bee Farmers. They came for lunch, for dinner, and for lunch again. Tomlinson Lumber Company, all the guys came there and ate. She was well known for all her pies and her home-cooked meals. I remember her dinners. She had a great big dinner, and that was 75 cents. But then it kept going up, and at the end it was $3.75. And pies were like $1. With ice cream was 25 cents. Yeah. Well, everybody in Callaway played ball. From when I was a little girl, I remember my dad played baseball. And it was a big baseball. Heart of Lakes tournaments and stuff. And every Sunday we get in a car, or we had it right in Callaway, and all these teams would come and they'd play ball and we get to play. And my dad was he was Bud Spry, and he was a good left-handed catcher, and everybody knew him. And he played against Smokey Johnsons, all the Johnsons from Detroit Lakes. They really had a good time. And then from then on, went into softball. We had so many softball teams in Callaway. We always had tournaments in Callaway. I went to fast pitch softball. Ken Pearson was really good in that. And it's still softball. And for our Callaway days, we're going to have tournaments again with all the families that are coming back to play against each other.
Callaway has had a fire department since in the 1930s is when the village council first decided to organize it. It's still going strong, and we now serve 5 area townships in addition to the city of Callaway. All volunteer, a lot of dedication from a lot of guys to make it happen. They are also putting on the street dance Saturday night for the Callaway Days coming up on June 16th. In addition to the fire department, we have the Callaway Lions Club, which is another group of volunteers that do a lot of good for the city. They were very instrumental in putting together the community building, both funding and construction. And I believe on Callaway Day they're having a pancake breakfast on Saturday morning. People may think that Callaway is dying, but we're actually the same size as when we were incorporated. It required 200 people to be incorporated, and we still have 200 people. The outlook of our city has changed. We don't have a main street with lots of businesses and cafes and hotels anymore, but it is a very good place to live and feel safe and comfortable. So I see that we will still be here another 100 years from now